I think this is going to play. The sound just seems kind of low, but we're just going to roll with it. I've put everything as high as possible, so we're just going to roll and see how we go.
Hey folks, it's Laura with Raintree Nursery, and it's September of 2020, hence the masks. We are here at Fairhaven College, which is part of Western Washington University, with the garden coordinator and the permaculture coordinator of the OutBack farm, which is an organic farm that has been part of Western Washington's campus for how long?
For almost as long as the campus for Fairhaven has been around, correct?
Yeah, I think since like 1970 something.
1970 something, right? So this has been pretty well. It's had ebbs and flows, right?
Correct. Yes.
You were saying something about it being more in an ebb right now.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So it was originally started by students that wanted to take back some land, and so they went out back behind the Fairhaven College. And so it's gone through many different waves of use throughout the years. There used to be actual farm animals here. It used to be a homestead long ago, hence the really old trees. And now, since there are actually paid positions for students and a 3-year-long position for a manager, it has been more of a involved entity on campus, especially with food justice, taking care of our fellow students and practicing permaculture.
And we'll show some pictures of how this place is sited, but there are college residences on either end of the farm itself. There's a parking lot on one side, which you can't see because of the hill, but I mean, this is right in the center of the college. It's so exciting to be able to see this kind of hands-on food production right in the thick of students. Now, you're the permaculture coordinator. Can you tell us a little bit about how you're integrating permaculture into the practices of this farm area?
Yeah, so we have a forest garden area on campus where we work to, produce perennial edible foods and create a much more self-sustaining system so that we can produce and distribute food to students here on campus.
And you also are inviting them to come and see how it's done so that they can take that learning to wherever they end up?
Well, I mean, in normal circumstances, yes. With the pandemic, we haven't been able to have as many people on the farm. This fall, we're hoping to have much smaller, like RSVP work parties where people can come and get some hands-on experience. But like last year as well, we would have big work parties where lots of students would come and, just get some experience growing food and seeing what it's really like.
And I think it's really interesting too, especially in the forest garden, to help folks understand that you can actually grow food in a forest, right? It's not a big flat plain where you're putting in row crops, right?
Absolutely, and I think that's something that's pretty special about this farm, is it's not just a flat place to grow food. It's because it is also a protected wetland and a permaculture farm. We have a lot of different mini ecosystems. We have the little creek with all the old trees, and we have the forest garden, and just a lot of different things going on in such a small space.
I'm so excited to see all these pieces. All right, shall we?
Yeah.
Awesome, let's go. So as we mentioned earlier, this building right back here, this is a residence hall. And how would you have liked to have looked out on a beautiful garden like this from your college campus, for those of you who are lucky enough to go? So tell us, what are we looking at here?
So this area of the farm is called the educational rows. We also call them the ed beds. So this is the place where we grow food for students. So any person that is a Western student can come through and pick their own food. So these actually aren't the ed beds. So they're over here. So any students can come to the farm and they can pick anything that they need to. This is where we practice a lot of food justice. So we have weekly food pop-ups for people that are food insecure here in Bellingham, which is a large portion of college students, which is why we prioritize it so heavily. So right now we're in the middle of cleaning up and editing our summer harvest. So we have things like lots of zucchinis are growing right now. Those are a great hit for people who are grilling, and they are also accessible to all people because you can just put them in the oven. You know, we have edible flowers. We had some cauliflower and some collard greens growing throughout the summer, kale. So this is basically where we grow the food for other students. So
I'm looking at this, and these beds are designated as seed saving, but what I'm also seeing here is just so many beautiful pollinators just getting in right next to the flowers of the squashes. I love seeing these alternating flower rows that are encouraging the insect population. This is so nice.
Yeah, our cover cropping is doing very well this summer. So our crimson clover is one of our most beautiful ones in my opinion. And we also do have a on-farm apiary. So we do have honeybees that go all over the farm and help take care of our plants that way. So I don't know if these are our girls or if they're someone else's girls, but there are plenty all around and they are very much loved here.
Sharing with the students and sharing with the bugs in the neighborhood, right?
Exactly, yes, we love bugs here. But yeah, so this is our wonderful ed bed row and it goes down, I believe there's it's 26 long, I think, something like that. It's close to 30. And we just have rotating crops all year long. We help dig these up in the summer and plant brand new things. We've got some great lettuce greens going in. So it's just a constant project and a constant thing that we have to upkeep. It's something that's been impacted by COVID because usually our work parties help take care of them.
Right. Very nice. Wow. To be able to have this and just give it away. What a gift. Now, you said that there were some educational beds too?
These are the educational beds.
Ah, right.
Yes, there are community beds. Those
Right. The community beds are this way, right?
Yep.
Ooh, let's go see them.
Okay, yeah. That would be another very important part of the farm. And we actually can see them right here, very close. You can see a sign that says community plots. So these are areas that I oversee and we can give them to people that need their own land to grow food, which is something that is very important, food sovereignty, not just food justice. So these are owned by students, faculty, staff, and also community members.
Do people actually sign up in advance and get them allocated?
Yes, so there's a wait list and you get put on it, and then whenever plots become available, I go ahead and give them to people and they get the experience of turning them over, turning them into whatever they would like. And so people grow flowers, foods, perennials, and annuals. And they are in charge of taking care of them. They are not our business after they are given to other people unless they are encroaching upon other plots.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's a wonderful way for people to kind of get a piece of land if they, you know, maybe live in an apartment.
Yes.
Things like that.
Yes.
Since or land access is such a big thing when it comes to taking care of yourself.
Absolutely. I'm hearing some chickens.
Yeah,
and I'm guessing that's for fertility too.
Yeah, so we try. Their bedding is a little bit difficult to break down, but I don't know. Do we use any of their poop?
No, not really.
We're
actually.
hoping to maybe figure it out somehow.
Yeah, we're in the process. We're gonna try and redo this coop actually because it's having some. It's starting to fall apart. There's been a few times where chickens have escaped, so that's probably a task for after we. Hopefully this fall.
Yeah, and there's always more to do, right?
Yeah.
No garden is ever finished.
Never finished.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So our girls are in there right now. Do they need to be let out?
Are they not
out? I don't think they're out. So Jericho might go do that right now.
What?
I hear them all, but yeah. So they're in their coop. We have volunteers take care of them. So I put them to sleep last night specifically, and then our volunteers also get the free eggs. So it's a wonderful way to community members
yes.
to come in and take care of themselves and some chickens at the same time because, you know, animal therapy is a real thing.
Well, and there's also, because there's lots of people here, if somebody forgets to let them out or oversleeps or something, there's always somebody else coming in who can pick up the slack.
Yes, absolutely.
Again, the whole the idea of community is just really, it's not just a word, it's actually in play here. I love that.
Yes, very much in play. Yeah, so there's our girls.
There they are, out
so
and about.
Jericho's just gonna feed them, looks like. But yeah, if you wanted to move on and see more of the community beds, we can show them down here.
All right.
But yeah, so we have some really developed ones that have, you know, some wire and such because it is a completely natural farm. So we do have pests. We have rats, but we also have an owl, a barred owl. He comes in the fall and comes and takes care of our rats for us. So it's a completely self-sustaining system.
Very nice.
But because of that, sometimes people do choose to protect their crops very heavily.
Sure.
And other people don't, but they
and
always
it gives
do
them
well.
a sense of cause and effect.
Exactly. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So we have community gardeners that are doing really incredible things. So we have wonderful, wonderful greens. We have people growing just complete stalks of corn. There are beautiful flower archways. There's that archway over by the greenhouse was completely sweet peas.
Oh, nice.
So gorgeous. And we also have student organizations that have plots here. So specifically, I know of Students for Sustainable Food has their own plot, and so they help students learn how to grow their own food. We also have Out in Science, which is the LGBTQ+ science club on campus, and so they have a plot over there. It's always very well taken care of. I always like to highlight our student clubs. But yeah, so it would look like this when you first get a plot. Well, it would look like that after you broke it down. So
Right.
you get the process of kind of turning it into whatever you want and salvaging what you need.
We'll see, because I can see mint.
Yes.
Lots of mint there.
So much mint.
And
that was
so
left
that's a
over.
benefit,
Yeah.
right? I clean up my plot, I get to harvest some mint before I even plant anything.
Precisely,
Such
yes.
a treat.
Yes, this person got some mint bouquets before they, took the rest down because it was, I think, just some borage. Or no, not borage, comfrey. But yeah, so this is the wonderful area that I get to oversee. We have 64-ish plots available, and they'll come in all different kinds. So some of them are on the wetland side, so they're a little bit more shaded. They have to grow different things. And then these ones get the wonderful morning sun, as we're feeling right now. So
Yes.
they grow very different things.
That's nice.
Yeah, so.
All right. So maybe we can wander into the forest and see the forest.
Yeah, absolutely. The forest garden. Right this way.
All right, let's go.
Okay, so here we are in the forest garden, which is the area where we plant perennial fruit trees, berry bushes, greens, different edible things, and work to reclaim the area. We kind of are in a constant battle with the invasive weeds taking over the area. So this bed that you can see right here is one I've been working on lately. I've almost finished the whole thing of taking out the weeds, planting cover crops like clover and vetch to help stop the weeds from returning, as well as planting other plants that are productive, like some sage that we propagated, some currants we had, other things like that.
They're beautiful herbs, and that's a gorgeous persimmon. Who's this with the red fruit down here?
That is a mountain ash.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's amazing. We've got a lot of different things growing here, lots of different fruit trees, apples, pears, plums. We've got blueberries, honeyberries, raspberries, grapes.
See, and
Lots of different stuff.
It's so interesting to look at what just looks like trees, structural trees, like the forest here, and realize that they're actually food plants. This beautiful tree right here, that's an English walnut. And this right over here, there's apples, there's hazelnuts.
We've got plums back there.
Yeah,
We've
and
got
it just
quinces over there.
it looks like a forest, but I mean that's how it gets to be called a food forest. It functions like a forest because there's shade, it's not all open, but all of these high structure plants are things that are going to be useful to human beings. Wow, so cool.
We can walk down this way through. We have a lot of different areas here. This is another new bed that we recently reclaimed. It's starting to get a little overgrown again. I have to go in and weed.
But yeah, I see strawberries, I see beneficial pollinators.
A bunch of different herbs.
Yeah, there's
got some berries, some sage.
nice.
A lot going on.
And a beautiful place to sit and contemplate and watch the patterns that unfold. It's gorgeous.
Yes, absolutely. It's
And there's
really
art
nice.
here. I can see these beautiful little pottery bells. And I love how you've used the cordwood to outline the beds so people know where to walk and where not to walk. See, that's
Totally.
gorgeous.
It can get overgrown quickly with the weeds, so we gotta have something.
And raspberries, oh my goodness.
Yeah, here's our raspberry patch. We've got a lot of raspberries and then a blueberry patch as well right here.
And that's perfect. Yeah,
this
because
is
it's wet, right?
Yeah, this is sometimes a little different than what we would normally do in permaculture, where we would try and plant a lot of the different berries in different areas in case of pests. But yeah, this is our one area where we have a raspberry patch, blueberries.
Look at this
got
blueberry.
some quinces.
Look at this huge blueberry. Oh my goodness.
It's a big one.
That is one happy plant.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
beautiful. And oh, there's a medlar. Look at that.
Medlar, yeah. Lots of different stuff. And then if we just walk down this way a little, we have an apiary right here on the farm, which helps us to pollinate a lot of different plants that we have.
Nice.
Right over this way.
Beautiful. How close can we get to these bees?
That depends on how much of a risk you want to take. I would say this is probably good, but
Ah, look at that.
we have, I believe, 4 hives. We've had some issues with one of them. This one, actually, the bees left, so we've been trying to get a new queen, get that started again. But yeah, it's awesome to have them so close. This one has observation areas where you can look in and see, but I'm not sure if there's anyone in here right now. Yeah, it's empty, but these 3 are, yeah,
And
very
is this a water feature for the bees right there?
Yeah, that's just a little bowl with crystals and water. It needs to be filled up actually, but yeah, something for them.
Wow. Busy as bees, right? Those girls look busy.
They don't stop, no.
Lovely. Wow. So beautiful and so productive. Now, what happens to the food that gets generated from this part of the farm?
It's pretty similar to what happens to the rest. We have a lot of students that come through here. I see lots of people coming and picking berries, apples, people harvest nettles, lots of different stuff. And otherwise, we will harvest it and distribute it. Last week at our pop-up was the first week that we got some fruit. We were able to pick a bunch of plums, give those to students. They're delicious, so yeah.
So really, it can be a U-pick where people can come and watch as things get ripe and then harvest.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a farm for all of Western students, so we really encourage anyone to come and see it firsthand, get an experience, and yeah, pick the food themselves, because I mean, there's something special about just picking it yourself.
Isn't there? Yeah, that is so true. Yeah. All right, now we're gonna go find something else to see. All right, so now Caitlin, you were telling me that this area right here is going to be a class?
Yeah, sort of. So we have a mycology class here at Western. It's taught by Dr. Abe Floyd. Lloyd, not, excuse me, sorry. He's super wonderful, super knowledgeable about so many plants, and so he is going to be helping some students go through and try to identify mushrooms. And so one thing that we're hoping to go ahead and bring into the forest for classes like that is going to be a mushroom garden. So down here in the forest garden, it's extremely shaded and nice and wet, and underneath a ton of huge trees, we have all these logs. So there's actually this program on campus that has students try and research things and then try to implement them into campus. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but things that have come through it will be like our cob oven that's going to be being built in a memorial for a past coordinator who passed away, unfortunately. So, you know, there's really great things that are being brought onto the farm by students, because it's not just a couple of coordinators that work here, it's for the entire campus.
Yes.
So right now, we're hoping to propose to this group of students that they can research how we can have a really productive mushroom garden here on the farm. So we'll have a team of students helping us research what we need, materials, what we should grow, how we should harvest it, things like that. And so then we might be able to have a place for those kinds of classes to be able to come and identify mushrooms without, you know, having to drive 2 hours away to a large forest.
Right. And here you've got the freshly cut logs that you could inoculate with mushroom spawn. Or you can also bring in wood chips and do flat mushroom inoculation beds, and having nice shade and regular moisture is perfect for that sort of. See, this is what's so great about the confluence of the money that comes with an educational organization, and the influx of labor that comes from, and interest and learning that comes from students. Because you have these beautiful areas that are just kind of lying fallow, just waiting for that spark to ignite into a learning experience, and also something that's going to make the land itself better and make food. I mean, gosh, it just doesn't get much better than that, right?
Yes, the students have made this place absolutely incredible. Like, especially the volunteers. We can't thank our volunteers enough, and we love seeing what the students do with the area and what knowledge that they bring to it.
Because it never really quite comes out the way you think it's going to.
Right.
It always becomes whatever it becomes.
Yes.
It's magic that way.
It's beautiful.
I love that.
Yes.
All right. What else can we see?
We can go take a look at the wetland area we've been trying to restore.
Yeah, wetland. Okay.
Let's do that. Look at this cute little creek.
Yeah, it might be little, but it plays a big role for us here at the farm.
Yeah?
Yeah, this is, one more special thing about this farm is this is actually a delineated and protected wetland because of this little creek. And so because of that, the university has not been able to develop it and build dorms or anything like that. And so that's the primary reason that this farm has been around for so long and hasn't been developed so much. And so we do work out in this area, in the fence and outside in this zone, to try and reclaim, to remove the invasives and replant natives, things like sedges and stuff that will really help preserve the ecosystem here.
And I bet the fact that you've got a nice natural source of water makes the relatively high water table for the rest of the farm, so you don't have to water as much because there's always water here, right?
Yeah, it definitely makes a difference in the zone, like in the areas where the creek goes. There's definitely some hills where we need to get to more, but it helps. And it also brings in some interesting things. Last summer we had some frogs that were living down in the creek, and so it's always nice to just see what can come of it.
Yeah, and this, I mean, we're in the middle of September. We're at the driest of the dry part of the year, and this is still running.
Yeah, and I mean, we see it go in and out. Like a couple weeks ago, it was definitely pretty dry, but it's pretty remarkable how consistently it's there.
Yeah, this is a wonderful tool if you're developing neighborhood areas that looking for places that are natural wetlands, and so you can't develop it. You could have a community garden there if you do your research right. This is just a beautiful lucky happenstance.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, what else can we see?
There's a hothouse that we can go check out.
Ooh, yes.
Different thing that helps with the season.
Let's do that. You know, as we were walking through this garden, I saw this cute little hothouse and I thought, this is the shortest little greenhouse I have ever seen. And then I realized that there's something special going on here, isn't there? Mm-hmm. Yeah, show us this.
Okay, so this is our hothouse, and yes, it does look kind of small from the outside, but if we come around here, it's actually kind of a little surprise. And make sure to watch your step if you come visit. So it is in the ground, halfway.
Look at this. This is an earth-sheltered greenhouse.
So we can bring you in here. And I'll wiggle down here.
Look at this!
Yeah, so wow. Our operations coordinator, Alyssa, recently just trellised and trimmed everything, so it looks very nice in here right now. But yeah, this is our hothouse. So it is partly in the ground to help it keep it cooler in the summers and warmer in the winters. So this is where we put stuff that really doesn't like to get water on it. So tomatoes really don't like to get a ton of water on their fruit or their leaves, so we put them in here. And we also have some wonderful basil plants down at the end that were donated to us from Cascade Pets. Just as a little note, we adore our gardens, centers, and nurseries that help us with plant matter. Like, we couldn't do it without them. So thank you to any of them that might watch this, especially y'all. Apparently you donated some beautiful stuff to us. So
over the years, Raintree has donated to lots of wonderful projects like this.
Yes, and we cannot say thank you enough. They are always beautiful, and plant matter is obviously very important to us.
This is so great because these beds are essentially raised, but you're not having to add a lot of organic matter to get a bed that's higher up and easy to harvest from for folks who have mobility issues or, you know, getting a little sore in the back. This is just so perfect because it's right at harvest level. And then also, because we're earth sheltered, the cold air can pool down low. My ankles are probably 10 to 15 degrees cooler than what I'm experiencing up here. So you got the plants with the heat that they want, and that cold air has a place to go. This is just, it's just brilliant. And it doesn't take a lot of materials either, because you're not building walls. Basically, the earth is the wall. All you're actually building is the ceiling. It's just brilliant.
Yes.
Wow.
We like to make the most of what we have here.
Yeah. Resources used wisely.
And we did have a little bit of a late season, but our tomatoes are finally turning red. We are so excited.
Yeah.
And our tomatillos are coming through, and this is also a really great place for our daikon radish, so we can save their seed. So that way the seeds didn't get wet. You can see them kind of cascading over back here, but that's a project we've been working on, is getting our little seed pods, so we can save them for next year because these were delicious. So.
Absolutely, and you know that they're all daikon. They haven't been cross-pollinated by anything else, so it's going to be true seed.
Yep, they are completely just them.
Very smart.
Yeah, so this is our wonderful hothouse.
And we have one other thing to look at,
One other thing, that herb garden.
All right. And here on the other side of the garden, we have the Fairhaven dormitories, and they look out on this beautiful herb garden. This is more of a classic garden, well-tended paths, clean beds, good edges, and a really beautifully pruned apple, an old russeted apple. Look at this. That is a thing of beauty. Wow. This has been here for a while, yeah?
Yeah, I don't know exactly how long, but I think it was probably an early addition, definitely.
Yeah. And it bumps right up against the forest, and the stream's right over there, so these soils are still nice and lush. I can see there's been some trees that are being caged against the deer, right?
Totally, yeah. And so this is a continuation of the wetland area where we're just trying to restore the habitat. And then, yeah, that goes out there, but here we have just a little herbal garden where we grow a bunch of different medicinal and edible herbs. There's different wildflowers things, and one of our work-study students who we bring onto the farm has really taken a leadership role here and done an awesome job kind of reclaiming the area, and so it's looking much better than it did a few months ago.
Well,
it's definitely a new one.
What a treat to be able to, you know, be done studying and come down and just kind of clear your head by enjoying the beauty of the garden and making yourself a cup of tea. Come look at this one. Look at this. This garden cracks me up.
Yeah, we'll see people coming in here picking lemon balm, mint, sage,
tea garden. Not a chair I want to sit in, but it sure is cute,
I would
right?
recommend it, yeah.
And this beautiful pineapple sage. Oh, yeah, there's just such bounty here.
Yeah.
Really beautiful. Well,
yeah,
thank you, both of you, so much for sharing all of the wonderful things that you're doing here, the time and the effort that you put into it. That love is just going to keep rolling on downhill, right?
Yeah.
And just get better and better. Yeah, thank you for joining us. I'm Laura with Raintree Nursery, and we'll see you next time.
So just a note for anyone who really enjoyed any of the Raintree videos, we have another one coming tomorrow. But Raintree will be posting these on their YouTube. So we probably won't be releasing these as Northwest Permaculture. Maybe we'll release the question and answer and stuff later after they've released their video, but we'll have to see. But just so you know, they'll be available later for viewing if you want to review them.
Awesome. And are we going to take some questions? And I guess me and you, Cassie, will be the MCs right now.
Yeah, David, I'd like to know if you still have a business with your concrete garden beds, and if you figured out the ecological footprint, and whether you read Steve Solomon that he stopped using raised beds years ago, but maybe he's changed his mind again.
I would say yes. I definitely factored in all the elements, and they're not applicable everywhere. But there comes some point in my age that I want to sit on the edge of some place, and I might be in a walker, I might be in a wheelchair. It'd be nice to like reach in and grab some food. Not applicable every place, but energy in versus energy out. I've found them applicable at places, and I've also been able to help decrease waste by establishing something that has some convenience with less waste. So it's like choosing something recyclable rather than something just perpetually throwing away that's causing toxins. So some ways it's kind of fixing like a more urban clean line solution, but also I think there's applicableness. I love throwing some of the beds at different places, even just as a stacking function as seating and some garden space, even in the midst food forest. So yeah, integrate it in designs when it's applicable. So it's like all the other questions. But yes, a discussion about concrete is a really good discussion. And I'm up for discussing. Maybe we should jump into a chat on that on the chat system. So yeah, on Slack. I lost that word.
How about hempcrete as an alternative?
Definitely, yeah. All of them are options. I definitely factor that in as an option, but input versus output and resources in the areas is important too. I'm not going to bring in hemp from a place where I don't have hemp, you know. But yes, definitely applicable that my forms could be used with hemp, just in the same way I'm using other fibers right now. So it is a fiber reinforced concrete, And I'd be up for experimenting with that, but I'm not going to ship them across the nation. Any other questions, especially like, I mean, I can take questions, but Raintree Nursery was just what was shared there. Any questions for them first?
And if there are any questions for them, I do have contact with Laura, so I can always ask and get back to people later about specific things that you were wondering about that may not have been covered in that video.
Yeah, and just a quick plug. Well, I'm really close to the screen. I went to school at Fairhaven College in Western and worked on the OutBack farm for the 4 years I was a student. So I was in one of the student coordinator positions for 2 years and a farmhand for the other 2 years. So if there are questions about the farm, there's a chance I might know some of those answers as well, because I spent most of my time in college hanging out on the farm.
That's so awesome. Did you know that they were going to share that?
No, not really. So when I was seeing this video, my heart was just like, oh, I'm walking down memory lane, and it was making me want to get back to Bellingham, honestly.
That's awesome. Any questions? I guess there's not any questions.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Well, for David Stein, I was just kind of curious if you wanted to talk about your experience as a student there and the sharing of the gardens. Anything you could add that, like, how has it changed since you were there?
Yeah, so later in the Convergence, we are going to hear from Terry Kempton. She's on the schedule, and she's going to be giving a presentation on food justice and things related to this. And she is now one of the OutBack manager positions. And when I was at the OutBack farm, that position did not exist yet. So the farm was run strictly by students. And in the last around 2 to 3 years, they've developed a position where faculty would help with other operational things on the farm. So we now have a full-time position that's not just a student as well, which I do think is helpful. I don't think it has taken away the voices of the student and the energy of the space, but attempting to run a big farm with just student input, it's a beautiful thing. I love it and support it, but it definitely ebbs and flows in terms of involvement and ownership of certain tasks getting done. So I think it is really nice they now have someone overseeing and helping keep things going when, you know, some things might slow down. I was just laughing in the video when they were at the chickens and they were like, oh, I think we need to let them out, because that was something that, you know, I would run into frequently as volunteers, sometimes forgetting to let out the chickens or dealing with some of those activities. So I think it's I truly believe community gardens and spaces like this have the ability to change the world and help with a lot of the problems we are facing in our society today. But I also realized through my 4 years at the OutBack farm, I learned a lot through just being there that, you know, you have all these ideas bouncing around, and there's definitely some points where the follow through can be difficult to ensure. So yeah, it's definitely something that was a constant bounce in running the OutBack farm, but it's an amazing place. And it was probably where I learned the most while I was in college. So I always will feel a level of gratitude to the farm, and sort of where this all began for me and my involvement here with the Permaculture Board.
Yeah, it looks like there's some questions here. Carmen said she knows that they had a lot of pollinators by squashes. What about competition for soil nutrients? And how can we balance this if we want to maximize vegetable protection?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Cool, dude.
Go ahead, David. No, you go first.
Oh, no, but you, David. We were like playing the David game. Which David? But yeah, I mean, that is definitely something we struggled with. Each year we would get lots of compost. We did use the chicken manure in our compost piles. So we definitely were integrating that waste into the soil systems. But in terms of competition for soil nutrients, I mean, there was quite a balance of different plants, from nitrogen fixation shrubs and plants to we practice a lot of crop rotation, so that helps mitigate the risk of depleting your soils of specific nutrients when you're altering which crops you're growing in that area and rotating them out and tilling them back in. David, you want to speak on this some more as well?
Yeah, just diversity. You know, I always do, whenever I have a design, I always just go look at what nature's doing by itself. You could just pull over on the side of the road and see areas, you know, put your hands into the areas that looks like the same height and width that you're going to be growing other things in, and just notice, like, count the diversity in a square foot, just count that. And nature's doing that without us doing anything. And what they're doing there is a lot more. I mean, they're very, very, very intentional, moving rotationally, doing things. I would say, if anything, that diversity is going to bring more abundance than competition, because you have diversity of root depth, you have diversity of what they need. You have the stacking functions of stopping evaporation and causing condensation. There's so many elements there. But yeah, I think sometimes we have to stop and kind of, I always say to use bulldoze, because sometimes we do that in permaculture, but just wipe away some of the preconceived ideas and come in as a child when we're looking at nature.
Absolutely. To answer,
I'd like stuff, if I may.
oh yeah,
Go ahead.
This is Brian up in Bellingham.
Hey, Brian.
I've been involved with OutBack Farm since 1981.
Wow.
And over years, I've taught workshops there. We've done some design projects there. This is a really amazing, unique place. I've been on committees that have saved it from turning into a parking lot, from dorms being built on it, all kinds of things over the years. And it really has a warm place within the community. And it has been a real hub of activity, you know, and I'm really excited to see younger people getting really behind it, and with Terry's lead and stuff, turning it into, you know, what was envisioned in the first place. With that being said, it is an amazing location. It's right at the foothill of Seaholm Hill, which is a protected arboretum. It has a huge watershed that comes down through that hillside. That's where the stream comes from. And so it has the benefit of this whole micro ecosystem right surrounding it. You know, you walk 100 feet out either direction and you're in parking lots or dorms or school places, you know. So it is this little niche. And because of that niche and the wetlands and being protected over the years, it has a lot of natural fertility that flows through it. So it's a corridor for deer, for birds, for squirrels, for all these things. Plus that river brings nutrients down, or stream brings nutrients down through the system. And yeah, I just wanted to put it in context, and historically, and also in the larger surrounds in that area. And I just wanted to really thank Laura and Raintree and the students that helped present that video, so that more people can learn about these really amazing projects that are going on in you know, various communities, and look for them, especially around universities. And I've seen other university gardens and garden programs, but you know, they're like given a flat acre of land or a half acre of land and they turn it into a garden. And this is actually part of an original ecosystem that has been tailored over the last, 40 years that I've been, you know, associated with it, into what it is today. And so we have to give acknowledgement to the people that have protected it, stewarded it. And another example of just, you know, stewarding land without attachment, it is really powerful. And I've been attached to it and stewarded part of it, and I can go visit it and I can point to it as part of where I've learned, and so many other people can do the same thing. And that's a beautiful part of building community.
I'm curious, can any of you guys say how big it is? think Laura may have touched on that, but I don't remember acreage.
It's 5.
It's
5 acres?
5.
What
It
said.
it kind of, yeah. It's I mapped it out. It's a little under 5, but there, you know, it depends if you could include road buffers and this and that.
But the unique thing about the landscape is only like 2 out of those 5 acres is getting nice exposure to sunlight. So there's like a section of the farm that you walk all the way down, basically the whole length of the property. And that's where the educational garden, community garden, herb garden is located. And then the rest of the property is under big, beautiful cedar trees. And that's where the creek is. And the forest garden kind of falls into that area too. But there's a lot less sun exposure in the majority of that property. There's also a stage for outdoor concerts, things like that. Sunita had a question relating to the composting systems on the OutBack farm. Yeah, so yeah, we definitely utilize hot composting systems. While I was there, at least, we would set up temporary compost systems with, you know, the method of using wire and creating, you know, around a 4-foot diameter and just stacking that organic matter, creating that balanced carbon to nitrogen ratio. So we would do that out by the rows that we were more or less farming, like in the educational rows. But towards the front of the farm, for the last 5 years that I've been involved, at least, we've been bringing a lot of the organic matter to that area. And we do kind of have that 3-bin system. And then we'll make piles and turn them over and start raising their temperature. There is also a vermicompost at the OutBack farm in front of the tool shed. There's a big wood bin where we just throw in food scraps, and we have, throughout the years, on and off worm activity going on. It's pretty close to one of the dining halls located on campus. So it was kind of difficult to get the dining halls on board with really trying to take the majority of their food waste because they don't separate it. So they're putting their meat, their dairy, because Bellingham has a very large compost making facility where all the compost in the city is collected and then through machinery and high temperature converted into soil. So that wouldn't have been the best method for the farm, having to pick out all the chicken and cheese and things like that. But we were collecting their coffee beans and waste because they make a lot of coffee in the dining halls. So that's kind of where things were at. And they were working on a biodigester. Paul Kearsley, who also will be involved later in the convergence, when I was there, was working on designs of putting a biodigester out on the OutBack farm as well.
There's another question.
Before we leave compost, I would also say that being part of a university system, they get the benefit of lots of wood chips, you know, and other resources that the university has to offer, you know, tree maintenance, wood chips, you know, leaf litter, all that kind of stuff as well. The grounds people know they can, if the pile's getting low, they can just dump it there.
Yeah, it's nice. Kelda asks, how in the world does it have such continuity given the high turnover, ephemeral nature of college students? And I was wondering that too, like, and I can kind of see how maybe older students would help younger students and like it, you know, kind of just pass it along through the years, but maybe you can talk about that, David.
Yeah, or Brian and I think both will be able to add to this. Do you want to go first, Brian, or do you want me to give my bit?
I'll give a little historical context. It was very difficult, and there was a lot of turnover, and there was a number of years where it pretty much fell into disrepair. And, you know, those were the years that I remember anyway that were struggling to keep it from becoming a parking lot and stuff. There was some squatters that lived there. There was a couple of old shacks that were built, and there was squatters that lived in these shacks, and they kind of, even after they graduated school, they kind of hunkered down in these shacks and they took care of it and protected it. You know, over the years, it has become a little bit more formalized and accepted as part of the curriculum in the schools. And so that's really helped with this process and the struggle. And so the last, you maybe know a little bit more, but at least the last 5 years, there's been an OutBack coordinator that laps over, and then various people for various tasks, like somebody's in the annual garden, someone's in the food forest, someone's taking care of the bees and that kind of thing. So Terry Kempton is not a student. She's a professor at Huxley, and she has taken on the role as coordinator, like lead coordinator. And then there's job descriptions that are opened up, and people can apply to various positions throughout the school sessions. Is that?
Yeah.
You have things, David?
Yeah, I'll add a couple things. So I think there's a few things that are going through my head with the OutBack farm in terms of how it's continued its legacy. Well, first off, as soon as you get to the property, you are met with this overwhelming energy of the land itself. It's a really special place. A lot of passionate people have moved through that space over decades, and it's apparent with how green and vibrant it is. So it's definitely been a place that's been cultivated with intention for decades, and that is very clear. Another thing I think that it's worth noting is the culture of Bellingham and Western and Fairhaven College. A lot of kids are entering a time in their life, in their college education, where a lot of these ideas intrigue them, but they find that they are in the academic side of things and being forced to hit the books and this and that. So the OutBack farm represented a place for students to actually go get outside, put their hands in the dirt. And I think that is part of the reason the OutBack farm has been a place of such appeal for a lot of those students over the years, because I noticed when I was in college, it was very easy to stay in this bubble right on campus. Everything you need is right around you, your food, your classes, your community. So pretty soon you have no need to have to leave campus if you don't want to. And a lot of kids don't leave campus. But then you aren't getting that green space necessarily. We have Seaholm Arboretum right behind the campus, but the OutBack farm, by being right on campus and being able to walk there, it created this space that I think a lot of students were missing from back home. Maybe they grew up in gardens or farms or whatever it may be. So I think that attracted a lot of students through the years. And then of course there are classes that end up going out into the OutBack farm and utilizing that space for their curriculum, whether it's a botany class, whether it's I took a class with Paul Kearsley when I was a student, and it was basically a permaculture design course. And it was over the period of the entire quarter, around 11.5 weeks or so. And it was like we were doing a PDC in the OutBack farm, and we would meet a couple times a week for that class. And it was like in 3-hour sections, I want to say. So each time we met at the farm, we were covering different principles and different methods that you need to understand when implementing PDC designs on landscapes. So I think between all those variables, the OutBack farm has remained a very desirable place, but it has its challenges changing leadership year after year. And it's super easy, I noticed when I joined the OutBack farm, to, I want to do this, I want to do that. But what happens when your time at the OutBack farm comes to an end and you move on and someone else is coming in with all their new ideas, but they're not picking up right where you left off? And that has definitely been one of the greatest struggles of the OutBack farm, but also one of the greatest things about it is that it's constantly evolving with different ideas and methods. So it's kind of this, I wouldn't even say it's a catch-22. It's like in permaculture, the problem is the solution. So
getting up to one of the questions that was originally asked about nuts, because OutBack farm, I'm guessing, is in a residential, if it's on campus, there's residential, there's like squirrels and other things. And someone was asking, how was there anything in place to keep squirrels from getting your nuts and things like that, being in a higher residential area?
To be frank, our nut production is really not that high on the OutBack farm. Those walnut trees are black walnut trees, and the 4 years I was there, I did not see a ton of nuts. I was always eager because black walnuts make amazing medicine. So I was hoping, you know, I'd get some of the ones that fell and be able to make medicine from them. But, you know, we've planted some nut trees over the last few years, but I'd say the majority of the production I at least observed when I was there were berry bushes, vegetables, and fruit trees. We do have quite a variety of fruit trees on the farm. but not a whole lot of nuts. So I can't speak too much from experience on that.
And WWU, that stands for Western Washington University, right?
That is correct. Yep.
Okay.
And Fairhaven College and Western Washington University are on the same campus, and they're like technically separate, but also a part of one another. So it gets confusing when you're interchanging Fairhaven with Western, but it's all on the same big campus.
So someone asked about the ethical way of dealing with squirrels. From what I know, like working at Burnt Ridge, there was a dog on the farm that would chase the squirrels, and that's how they dealt with squirrels getting the nuts. So I don't know if there's any, I don't know what your thoughts are, David, on that.
Grow enough where the pressures are not enough to be detrimental to your sustenance and well-being.
Yeah,
You know,
plant more
what
trees.
you know what I find funny is really when it comes to urban areas, that's the hard part. But like I
Mhm.
find that the squirrels on my research farm became so elusive because they had so many, they're competing, you know, they're trying to stay alive, where you're in the city, it's like the squirrel has no fear, you know, it's like I'm the king of the jungle, or king of the concrete jungle, really. And so yeah,
I
urban
think
areas is no, I don't even know. It's a good
variety is a
urban.
thing too. If you plant different types of nuts, the squirrels will bounce from tree to tree to tree and then leave some for you to harvest, I think.
I
We've
think
been,
people being rather successful just trapping them and moving them off property. That's a fairly common thing to do in my area that seems to work for at least the squirrels we have here. If they're taken about 2 miles away, they don't come back.
we've been dealing
Mhm.
with squirrels for years here at Inspiration Farm, and we have a lot of nut trees, some very old and established, very tall, others much younger. And over our 20 years of being here, I've noticed there is what's called mast years of nuts, and the nut trees have evolved with the eaters of nuts. And so there's sometimes low populations of squirrels, and the nut trees will have a mast year, and then we get some nuts. And then there's other years where the squirrel population's high and the jays are high and the nuts are low, and they pretty much get every single nut. We have dogs that chase them, but they can't climb trees, so it only goes so far. We've trapped them, we've shot them, we've eaten them, you know, so the problem is the solution. It's like, ooh, nut-fed squirrel stew. That sounds pretty good to me. I have heard of people, the real good predator for squirrels is falcons. And so if you want to take up falconing, you could probably have a job going around in nut harvest season and taking out some squirrels. You know, other than that, you just kind of have to learn to live with them. I find the squirrels get a lot of the nuts early in the season, and then their larders are kind of full, and then there's nuts that fall, and those are what you get from the bigger trees.
I did like one of the comments Mary made, like when she sees the nut activity, she goes out and starts harvesting nuts, or yeah.
Yep.
And that's a good, watching the animals and seeing, like with hazelnuts, you kind of have to do that too, because if you're not right on it, they're going to get all the nuts and in a really short time. So
use them as an indicator, and I do the exact same thing. If I see squirrels or jays on, especially the filbert trees, the lower trees, it's like time to go get them. And you just got to go out there. If you need a ladder, you need a ladder. Otherwise, you just pull off the branches and you just strip everything off. Is that a message that was a nut gatherer tool? Yes, I use, there's a tool I use that's called a nut weasel. It's like a little wire cage in the shape of a ball, and you roll over the ground. I have one big enough I can pick up apples and pears. And horse chestnuts in the burr. And then I also have a smaller one that'll pick up walnuts and filberts. And you just kind of roll the ball over it, and it pops into the ball, and then you can empty that into a bucket.
And one thing that would be really awesome is if people wanted to, in Slack or Discord, like talk about fun tools, like you were just talking about, Brian, that you enjoy using. Like, I think that's helpful to like show people this is a tool I use, and like give people links
Yeah,
to where they could maybe find that tool.
I will give a plug. I am giving a talk on my favorite tools tomorrow, including size and some other hand tools that I make, and then some that I find super useful as your systems get established. So check the schedule for that. I think it's 10 to, or 9 to 10:15 or 10 to somewhere.
Yeah, it's 9 to 10:15 a.m.
Yeah.
on Sunday. Yep.
So it looks like we're about to go into lunch, into the Seed Savers Forum. And if David Stein, or not David Stein, but David Algren, if you want to make a room for kids, I probably have an hour that we could do a kids room.
Yeah, I can
do that.
I don't have any kids available. They actually went to a friend's house. But yeah, I'll go ahead and make a kid room. Let's see here. And then
I have an awareness announcement.
yes.
Just so everybody knows, the session immediately preceding lunch is the one time where we have 2 different rooms. So at the end of lunch, we're going to close down this room so everybody has to go. And the session is for a